The Duke Nukem franchise is a very interesting one for many reasons. When Duke Nukem 3D was released in 1996, it took 15 years for a sequel to come out. During that time, however, there were still Duke Nukem games being made. Each experimented with different genres, and here we have Duke Nukem Manhattan Project. Developed by Sunstorm Interactive and released in 2002, this took Duke Nukem to a side-scroller. What many people don't know is that before Duke became Duke, he was a side-scrolling hero. Either way, is this game worth playing? We'll take a look as we analyze the graphics, audio, and of course, the gameplay.
Don't get your panties all in a bunch.
So let's start off with the graphics, and since this game was made in 2002, those are the standards that we will be using. The gameplay is played in a 2.5D perspective, meaning that the character models and the environments are 3D, but the game ultimately plays as a 2D side-scroller. The environments are pretty varied, and I like how some of these stages look, such as my favorite looking stage here is the club stage. I just love the design, the futuristic design, everything looks sleek, it looks kind of live up in here. I wouldn't mind being in a club like this, honestly. Minus the mutant pigs and the mutant reptiles trying to kill you. But other than that, it looks pretty cool. The character models look pretty decent for the time, especially because this was a budget title when it was released. The team who made this game didn't really have a AAA budget to go to, but other than that, I think they did a really good job with the graphics for what they were given. The only issue with the characters I have are with the animations. Some of the animations for the cutscenes are really smooth, but during the gameplay it just looks unrealistic and it kind of takes you out of the immersion. Even though it is supposed to be an arcadic title, it still would have been nice if the animations had a little bit more care towards them. The frame rate is also pretty smooth. Granted, I'm not running this game at the highest settings, unfortunately, because like I said before in my previous videos, all I have right now is a laptop and I don't really have a decent computer to run these games. But either way, it does a great job of maintaining 60 frames per second. The only real slowdown happened during the club stage, but other than that, everything for the graphics is pretty good. And that's why my final score for the graphics is a 7.5 out of 10. The character models are pretty good, the animation's a little wonky at times, the environments look pretty good, and the frame rate is pretty stable. However, nothing really stands out for me to give it a higher score. And now onto the audio. The first thing I'd like to talk about before I get into Duke Nukem's iconic voice, I'd like to talk about the sound effects. Each weapon sounds unique in its own way, and they all feel satisfying, especially the shotgun. When you shoot the shotgun and that noise that it makes, it really feels like you have power in your hands. It sounds amazing. And of course, once again, we have the iconic Duke Nukem voiced by the excellent John St. John.
Someone's gonna pay for making me find these friggin' key cards.
Duke pretty much makes a lot of references, a lot of pop culture references for the time. This is what he's always been doing ever since Duke Nukem 3D. Whether or not you like the references is up to your opinion, but I find Duke to be entertaining. The music in this game is pretty good for the most part. The music plays somewhat appropriate to the location. Here you're in the club, so you hear club music. When you're in New York, you hear New Yorkish music, so on and so forth. I really like the music you hear once you beat the levels. It just sounds really badass. So with the game's good sound effects, decent music, and awesome voice work by John St. John, this game gets an 8 out of 10 for audio. The audio does a lot of good things right, and nothing is really too spectacular similar to the graphics, but what pushed this up to an 8 was the excellent voice work by John St. John. He is an amazing talent, and I hope he prospers for years to come.
New York, it's my hometown.
So as I said previously in the intro and as you see from the gameplay footage, this is a 2.5D side-scroller. Because of this, there's a good amount of platforming involved. For the most part, the platforming seems pretty good and it's actually varied. The platforming requires good timing for many of its segments. The jumping feels smooth, but for some reason you cannot perform a double jump in certain instances. I'm not too sure if it's a design flaw or if it's just a straight up glitch. Either way, the jumping does pose a problem in some instances. You also have instances where you have to grab on a ledge and try to shimmy across. Most of the time you can just go right ahead. Other times, like here, you have to slow down, wait for the fire to go down, and move across. So that requires good timing as well. So what's the goal in each level? It's pretty much the same every time. You have to find a key card to unlock the door to take you to the exit, as well as finding a chick, or as they call it in this game, a babe. So along with key cards and chicks that you find, you also have to find nukes. These are optional to collect, but they give you boosts to your stats, such as increased health, more ammo capacity, so on and so forth. There's 10 in each level that you'll have to find. This adds some replay value as you can go back to earlier levels and replay them to find the nukes. So in this game, shooting is a huge element. You have 7 weapons to choose from, and while I do want more, I have to admit these weapons are pretty satisfying, especially the one that you see here where you get to shrink your opponents and then step on them. All the weapons are pretty satisfying, and I haven't found one that I didn't like. While I must admit, aside from the goo gun or whatever it's called, the shrink ray, all the weapons are fairly standard. However, they are satisfying to use, especially with Duke Nukem. Along with the 7 weapons, you also have 3 power-ups that you can pick up along the way. One of the more notable ones is the jetpack. It's pretty self-explanatory and it's vital for progressing through the game. Another power-up you can get is double damage, which pretty much means
It's clobbering time.
Again, this one is pretty much self-explanatory. You get more damage, so it takes less ammo to kill your opponents. Most of the time, double damage is hard to find, so you have to look around the level in order to get it. Another power-up that you can find is the force field. Now, the force field pretty much acts as a shield or invincibility for a while. Anything you touch doesn't hurt you, so you can fall on fire, water, or get attacked by enemies and you'll be fine. So it's self-explanatory as well, which begs the question, why am I talking about this? The game has 8 episodes and 3 levels, and at the end of the 3rd level, you'll have to face a boss. The boss battles in this game are easily the weakest part of this game. The bosses are either way too easy or way too hard. There's also a lack of creative thought. While some of these bosses do have 2 forms, it's mostly uncreative and something that you've probably seen or done in other games. One of the weaker bosses and one of the way too easy bosses is the sewer monster that you'll have to face. It's pretty much like a huge bug or something. This one has 2 forms, but it's nothing really special. All you have to do, at first I was confused, but all you have to do is really just jump on a platform and keep shooting it in the head. It also has a second part to the boss battle where you have to fight on a subway train. Now, just the sound of it, it sounds like it has some really good potential, like you have to move back and forth between the trains, but no, you pretty much just stand at one end of the train, continue to shoot whatever weapon you have. Here I just kept shooting the rocket launcher, and it eventually goes down, and it barely touches you if you stand on the edge. This is one of the easiest and shortest boss battles that I've ever played. And speaking of short, this game isn't that long either. The game has 8 episodes with 3 stages in each of them, totaling up to a total of 24 stages. Now, a lot of people see the short length of this game as a bad thing, but to me I think it's appropriate because any longer then this game would have felt really repetitive. So I'm okay with this game being short because towards the later ends it does start to feel repetitive as it doesn't vary itself as much as it should be. Regardless of its flaws, the gameplay is still a lot of fun, and that's why my final score for the gameplay is a 7.5 out of 10. The game is a lot of fun, it's very arcadic, and there's a lot of things that keep you going. The gameplay is excellent, and while nothing is really too special and nothing really, revolutionary can be found in this game, it is still an enjoyable time. And now it is time for the closing thoughts. Overall, this isn't the most innovative game I played. There's nothing special that stands out about it in each 3 categories, minus the voice of John St. John as Duke Nukem. Either way, I still recommend this game to many people, especially if you're a Duke Nukem fan. You'll find yourself well more than just enjoying this. And that is why my final overall score for Duke Nukem Manhattan Project is a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, it's a good game. Sure, it has its flaws, but you can easily overlook it with the amount of fun that you'll be having in this title. So as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Support me on Patreon. The link should be above, below, wherever I feel like putting it. This is Pow3rh0use, signing off.
Rest in pieces.